Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, people. Welcome to the fifth in the series of Conversion Works London video series. And today we are talking about where hypotheses are born. And today I do have a guest speaker to join me to make it a little bit more interesting, to get a few more opinions. He's already said that this slide is completely pretentious. This guy is a long friend of mine. We've known each other for probably 10 years or so. Some people believe that he is the twin brother of Muhammad Ali, who took a completely different path in life. In fact, they were an A/B test, and he is the B variant, and in this case, he's the winner. So, without further ado, we have Mr. Iqbal Ali. If you don't know, this is
Hello,
him.
everyone. So yeah, I so those people who say that know me very well.
Very, very well.
And obviously I've succeeded where Muhammad Ali failed. I'm still
Yeah.
here.
You're
Yeah.
normally really, really hench, and you have to like make sure you don't train to try and
Yes.
get a bit
Yes, that's the
smaller,
secret. Just avoid training, avoid doing anything stressful.
right? I forgot to say that you're always in a frenzy, but don't worry, it's only a mild frenzy. Those of you
Ah,
know that know Iqbal will know what I'm talking about there. So should we dive
yeah,
straight into
yeah.
it? Start
Yes, let's
talking
go.
about the best way to come up with ideas. So, where to start?
Yep. Where
So,
to start? I
yeah,
think
go for it.
ideation needs to start somewhere. Before you get to the ideation, you need some other stuff to do, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sure. So user research. This one, obviously, essential. Finding out what your users think, trying to get into the head of the user, your customers.
Mm.
To me, this one is kind of a double-edged sword, right? And I think there's some, for me, in my opinion here, that there's some really good forms of user research and customer research, and then there's some ones that I think are slightly weaker. The ones that I've come up with recently and the ones we've done recently is call listening, like listening to phone calls, and we've done a really cool project where we were able to um, kind of watch user sessions in a session cam type tool, and then even for prospects, we were then able to link it through to the to call center calls, and we could actually listen in and figure out what they were complaining about. So we were able to say where they fell out of a journey and what they were complaining about, and that was really, really powerful.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that does sound good.
um, ones that I'm kind of always a bit skeptical about, and I think you might have a differing opinion, but like the kind of the workshop that where you get a professional user researcher in and you watch what they're doing. The reason I'm a bit skeptical about that is I've been to like 3 or 4 of those sessions where you watch real users, and I've met the same person. So she was like a professional user, come and get paid for the day to use a website. And I'm just
Mm.
kind of thinking, is that a real user? So I'm a bit skeptical on that one, but yeah, what do you think?
I think there are some pitfalls with user research. I think done well, it's a really powerful tool, but I think the first starting point is recruiting the right type of people. So as you
Yeah,
mentioned there, if they're sort of like do it professionally, they use a test professionally, then they're probably going to come with some baggage and going to have some kind of ideology. But you need to do is kind of get a sort of like a sense of a user persona or behavioral persona, something that matches what your product is trying to match users for,
yeah,
something that's relevant to the specific audience. Get them in. Even then, what people say and what people do, and I think you'll probably be putting that point as well, is often different. So what users
yeah,
say and what
yeah,
users do don't match up. So I think there is
100%.
something called the aesthetic usability effect, where basically, if you put two designs in front of people, people will always assume that the one that's best designed is also the best in terms of usability. It's not actually, even
Yeah,
though it might not be correct. So it's something else to look out for. So I think, with some well-placed questions, tasks, and choosing the right audience, you can get some pretty good data.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So heuristics, so past experiments. I love this one as well. I think to me, I think this is one of the most powerful ones. It kind of, people have been talking about it, especially recently, about doing meta-analysis on your experiments. So kind of
Yeah,
categorizing all your experiments, especially when you've done like 1,000 experiments, you kind of
yeah,
need to like take a stop and a step back and go, well, out of everything that we've done over the last 3 years or 2 years or whatever, what really worked?
mm,
Did we really make the most of it? Could we use it elsewhere? Do we use it in every journey? Are we using it consistently? And why did it work as well? I think it's definitely. I
mm,
think I probably learned that from you. It's like why did it work? Do we really understand why that worked? And did it
yeah,
work for the reasons we thought it worked
yeah.
as well?
And then there's follow-up experiments there to kind of like really drill into that learning. And I think
Yeah,
the another one is understanding what you might be missing as an area. And I think that's something that you picked up on when we were doing some meta-analysis at one point, where you're saying, hang on a second, you're not you have got many experiments around this specific area. So it's kind of like as well, taking a heuristic approach at your experiments and also highlight where you also need to add more experiments in terms of
definitely.
like if you're doing
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get
relevancy or something.
get an even spread of like the types of things you're testing. I'll touch on that. I
Yeah,
think I've got another slide on that. So yeah, we could touch on that in a little bit.
cool.
Business constraints. Are these like drivers of ideas or like the current? I wasn't too clear on why you'd added this one. So you crack on for this one.
Yeah, so it's kind of like constraints in terms of, like for example, user testing and users might want you to, say you're doing present all of your competition and present where you are in the competition. So give you a good
Right.
sort of
Got it.
indication
Got
of
it.
where
Got it.
you are. But as a business, it might not make sense. That might not be what sits well with the business.
Mm,
Also, it might be like there's some sort of constraints in terms of what you can test and what you can't test in
mm,
terms of not just legal, ethical, but also technical constraints, which is
yeah.
something that you need to put aside and then look into, but not something that you'd want to, prioritize loads of hypothesize, ideate loads of tests on when you know that it's you need to unblock this
Right.
constraint. First of all, you need to look at this constraint. So yeah, it's just kind of understanding that, and also in terms of business goals and OKRs, like them, it might be the product team as a whole has got an OKR to go to in a certain direction to release certain feature sets. Like they'll have a roadmap where they want to get to.
Mm,
So how whether or not experiments need to live and fit within those OKR
got
constraints.
it. Got it. Got it. Analytics research. Yeah. So I feel like I should love this one. I should absolutely, given like my background is more web analytics originally, I should love this one. I definitely feel like it can go. How do I explain this? Yeah, I think I kind of talked about this as like shuffling. So
Mhm.
typically when we do analysis on a funnel, for example, we identify that there's a key drop-off point, and I think typically the tendency is to say, well, that's the problem point, and that isn't always the case.
Yeah,
So I think this does need to be
yeah,
done really, really carefully, and and contextually as well. So like really, think about where your decision points are and where you might expect someone to drop off, because that might not be your area of biggest opportunity, and that seems to be like
mm,
the typical thing and analysis that I see is people tend to drop off after they see a final price because they're either like, "Whoa, I've seen what I need to see in an investigative phase. I'm going to drop off." That doesn't mean that they're not going to either come back tomorrow or that you're going to improve
yeah,
it by focusing on that area necessarily.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like the other sort of research. It's something to be wary of, like just kind of do the analysis, but don't read too much into what you're seeing. You can kind
Mm,
of like say, this is what I'm seeing, come up with new hypotheses, do more. analytics research to kind of verify those hypotheses.
Hmm.
And then you can uncover, questions or things that fit towards a problem statement that you maybe have. Like you maybe have a problem. I think users are having this kind of problem, and then trying to prove it with user research, heuristic,
Yeah,
and analytics research.
yeah,
Those in combination can be quite a powerful kind of thing to validate that this is an area or a problem that is worth exploring with some experiments.
awesome. Yeah, 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 definitely. Um, problem areas. Yeah, I think error logging as well sometimes. What else was I
Yeah.
going to say? Um, oh, it's gone.
Yeah, you
There's-
I think I remember a number of times where you kind of I think you were championing at one point sort of much more specific error sort of logging and error
yeah,
tracking.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the specific
So I think actually
things that are
one
causing the
yeah one thing that we've seen recently is actually error handling on one of the
yes.
sites that we deal with is not great, and that's one area that I think we're looking at A/B testing. It's a smaller niche, but of traffic, but we think that the potential to improve there can be fairly large because they're quite actually in some cases quite far down the funnel.
Mm.
Yeah, what other approaches do you think there might be to getting ideas, and where do you think the best ideas come from in terms of people within the team?
Certainly there's some I wouldn't necessarily say the idea of solutions from like customer research team or the customer service team or whatever, but they're a good place to validate user
Mhm.
problems and to highlight where user problems are. In terms of like the best ideas where they come from, I think I think there's some specific types of ideas, and I think that's where specific different kind of people in different roles are quite strong in those areas. Like developers could probably come up with a lot of ideas that are kind of much more technical in nature, whereas product owner with a much more of a product vision in terms of seeing the problem and solution sort of thing. So I think the product owner has a very specific kind of skill set that
Yeah,
they can lend to get specific types of
yeah.
experiment ideas. Um,
You're saying that
but
it's
and again, this is sorry, yeah.
you're saying it's not the highest paid person?
Yeah, the highest paid person
It's already
is
the
the
highest.
oh
Yeah.
that's I missed out an arrow on that.
Uh,
Ideas come directly
yeah, top down. That comes from the top down, right? Like
top down. Yeah,
that.
top down.
To be fair though, I think in some businesses, like I've had some really good ideas from the board, like top down.
Mm.
And, it's normally something that I'd
Oh yeah. Yeah.
try and resist, or at least them taking over. But yeah, definitely had
Yeah.
some good ideas from the board in some cases. What do you think about the best forum for gathering ideas? Have you done workshops and
Ah,
stuff like that?
I've done workshops, and workshops can be a double-edged sword as well, because if you do workshops, you really have to focus
Yeah, yeah,
everyone on a maybe on a specific problem. So
yeah.
you have to do all of the research ahead of time. You have to then describe the problem, and then you can say, okay, for this session, we're going to work on this specific problem,
Hmm.
and this is the parameters within which we can ideate. And then you use like there's a book called a sprint, and there's a model in there where you basically you do like an what's it called eight grid. You get a
Hmm.
piece of paper, fold it in eight, and then you do some ideas on one side, and then you review it with everyone, and then you kind of come up with some more ideas based on the information you came back, and you time box it, and then you kind of collate all of the ideas you've got. One of the things I really hate that to watch is this dot voting thing, which I absolutely hate
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. I remember doing that.
it's yeah, it's horrible. And it kind of
Votes.
like yeah, you get into the realms of subjectivity and you get into the
Completely.
realms of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the people just like yeah. So I think in general that's kind of a that can be quite a useful forum for collecting ideas from different sets of people. Like we were saying, I think
Yeah,
good ideas come from different areas. But again, as well, I think just ideating on your own is quite a
yeah,
powerful thing once you know what it is that you're looking at.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think one thing we did back in the day at hotels.com, we did like a competition, and we just basically put out a form on Confluence, I think, and let people just put in, sent an email round about 3 or 4 times over the month, and we gave, I think we basically then shortlisted, I think 5 or 10 tests, and then the winner with the biggest result, the person who came up with it won an iPad, which was pretty cool, and obviously we
Oh
got to
wow.
give away an iPad as well, which is quite cool. Anyway, that's
How did that go in general? Like, what was the how was that did that come up with lots of ideas over a longer period of time, or
It was, I
was
think
it?
we opened it for like a month, and then
Right.
memory, I mean, this is a long time ago now. I think kind of had like maybe about 20 or 30 hypotheses. We had to deduplicate them because some of them were like, actually, these are really obvious. Or people had chatted in the corridor and stolen each other's ideas, not too sure. Um, and yeah, we kind of whittled it down. I think we ended up running 5 to 10, I think. So yeah, it was definitely worthwhile doing. And I think it was also partly like a cultural driving thing as well. You got get people involved. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So exploring and versus exploiting.
Yeah. Yes. So explore is kind of like the because the I think most people are probably it'd be best to focus on the exploit. So this is where imagine it's like the whole old octopus thing in the isn't the octopus in the casino where basically it's explore is where it's kind of using its arms to pull on lots of
Right, right,
levers,
right.
and
Yeah,
then exploit is where it's kind of found a lever that's pulling giving it
yeah,
money. It just
money.
kind of
Okay.
exploits that. So it's kind of so
I haven't heard the octopus one.
so
Like a multi-armed bandit kind of octopus working
exactly.
multi-armed bandits. Okay, fine.
Yeah, yeah. And and the exploit is where you have something that's definitely supported by evidence, and you'd probably have vast majority of experiments would live here, and because it's all supported by evidence, you could probably go towards a more expensive builds. You can probably increase your risk. Um, Whereas with explore, it's kind of like, looking for new opportunities where maybe there's not much data
Yeah,
for those opportunities.
yeah,
I call it the spice of life. It's kind of like I really like explores, but
yeah,
they have a very very high fail rate. So it's important that the builds are very cheap and that
yeah,
you don't have too many experiments in this kind of area. But the experiments that you have should be very cheap to build and
yeah.
cheap to sort of analyze, etc.
Got it. I guess you're probably thinking leaning more towards client side JavaScript development on the Explorer and maybe full stack on the exploit, or built in the application on exploit. Um,
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but yes, you could probably divide it because yeah, in the client side JavaScript, you could probably roll out stuff very easily, whereas things involving the developers and being full stack takes a bit more time. But yeah,
nice,
that's a good
nice.
point.
We've kind of done a model like this previously where we kind of looked for conversion veins, or win themes, we'd kind of call them, which are like
Mm.
these are the types of things that we think are really working. And again, categorizing, doing a meta analysis and categorizing things. Um, and then we're kind of asking ourselves, have we bled this vein dry? Is it something that we need to pursue for a bit of a weird
Yeah. Have we
analogy?
exploited this enough?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. All right, the next slide I've got is kind of like what I use sometimes to kind of e- expand the kind of your train of thought when you're coming up with ideas. I might need to move us
Yeah.
over down here. We're going to go down here. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like, especially at the start of experimentation programs where you're like trying to do a kickoff. You're like, we haven't run any experiments. We want to start doing this. This is kind of just a bit of an eye opener as to the types of things companies could do, companies are doing that work. And
Mm.
recently, especially, I'm working with a client who's very focused, and they're quite new to market on what their pricing and proposition actually is, what
Mm.
what the products need to look like, what how it needs to look and feel. And the drive is very much to focus on business factors more than anything, and I guess to some extent branding.
Yeah.
And then I guess in other scenarios, again, like hotels.com, we were really focusing on a lot of stuff on the right. We had so much traffic there. Some of these smaller things, I think probably scarcity, urgency, and scarcity were the big thing at the time back in kind of 2010. Booking.com were doing it. Everyone
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
doing it, and we were actually having like really big wins with that
Yeah.
social proofing conversion vein. That kind of stuff was
Yeah.
like really big, and it did really work. I don't know if it still works now so much. People might
I
be
haven't done one any recently actually, so I don't know. It could be like it could be a 2010 thing,
yeah,
like you say.
maybe
But yeah, it has worked. Like the last urgency test did was probably like 4 years ago around, and it was it was a success. Um, so yeah, but yeah, I like the way that you've categorized the behavioral influences. I think that's a really really strong way. There's another way that I've sort of discovered. Probably shouldn't be. Yeah, it's sort of splitting by ability, attention, motivation, certainty, choice,
yeah,
which is from online dialogue.
right,
I
yeah,
saw
yeah,
that in Ruben's sort of um, talk.
yeah,
But yeah, that's another way of. So there's lots of behavioral sort of categorizations
yeah.
you could
So I
use.
think actually to your point on focusing workshops, I so behind all of these, like each line item within these cards, I built like a set of cards where you could kind of take it away and like give a couple of them to a pair of people, and you go away, come up with ideas, and then come back. And to be like, it turned out okay, but it was just too much. I think it wasn't like
Yeah,
everyone focusing on one problem. It was very scattergun. It was just like too much to consume. And like the recent client that I'm working with now, they just want to focus on the business factors. I think that's off that experience of making that mistake, definitely the way we're going to go down for sure. Stay focused.
yeah. No, that
That's probably
problem
top tip.
with the vast array. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, that problem with the vast array of ideas and stuff. I remember like coming back with like post-it notes upon post-it notes and seas of
Yeah,
post-it notes of ideas, and half of those are just like junk, and
yeah,
and it's just you need somebody to really make sure everybody's focused
yeah,
on exactly what it is that you're doing, because
yeah.
otherwise, yeah, it goes crazy.
Waste of paper as well, right? At least we've got kind of
Yeah.
Miro and Figma and those types of things now, which I think are actually really helping in those types of sessions. Have you used any of
Yes.
those tools?
I haven't used those tools in any sort of those kind of sessions. I use those tools internally, and I use those tools with when trying to communicate with the client about user testing, research, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Putting it on a Miro board is a really good sort of way of communicating
Yeah.
with everyone in the
So
company, basically.
recently we've done sessions where I think I can't remember if it's Figma or Miro, but everyone's logged into the same board, and we're basically doing that very similar kind of process you were talking about putting ideas on a board and then voting for them. But we were able to
Yeah,
use Miro or Figma to do that, so that at least the paper wasn't wasted, even though
at
there
least
was
people
like a
do.
lot of ideas.
That's the good thing about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
What did you think? What I didn't ask. What do you think of the dot vote thing? Because yeah,
Yeah, I don't love it. Like you say, it's very subjective, right? And I think
yeah, yeah,
sometimes I think it's kind of like I could probably flip flop between just try and test everything you can because it's all very subjective, right? Until you prove it, until you've done
yeah,
it. We talk about this a lot. Is like, well, what's the minimum detectable effect's going to be? We don't know yet.
yeah,
It's a test, right? And
yeah,
that's one of the big,
yeah,
maybe the big challenges at the moment with lots of people are talking about. It seems online is like
yeah,
how long do you run a test, and like how can we predict how big the wind's going to be, and should we be just trying it anyway and seeing what it ends up like. um
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's a sense of overthinking it, isn't it? Is it?
definitely, yeah,
I think, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
um it's fair though, if there's very
yeah,
limited resource in terms of delivering things. um yeah, I think it's fair to do that, have that scrutiny. I don't think necessarily
yeah,
voting is the right thing, and in our workflow, we have this ideation at the very start, and then we have a kind of a second layer, which is um, data validation. So, is there
mm,
evidence for this hypothesis, and then we take it to the product owner who helps prioritize based on that data and the information, the hypothesis, everything together. Um, so yeah, I think there's maybe coming up with ideas isn't actually the hardest bit. It's actually prioritizing them. But that is another
yeah.
episode.
Yes, yes. That's another subject topic, huge topic,
Yeah,
I'd say.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
Pi, peer. We've talked about this a lot, haven't we? So again, that's another
yeah,
episode. I think on that note, we should
yeah.
probably wrap up and sign off.
Yep,
So on that note,
cool.
guys, anyone who's watching, please like, subscribe. There is a YouTube channel. This will be going up on YouTube. How long have we been going for? I don't know. I don't know if I can put this on LinkedIn because it might have gone over the time. But
Oh,
yeah,
I think it's about 40 minutes, but yeah,
yeah, cool. So thank you everyone for joining us on this session. Hopefully we'll do more. I'm trying to line up a few with a few other people as well. So the more the merrier. And like I say, click the button, go over to YouTube, subscribe, and enjoy your day.
cool. Enjoy. Thanks. Thanks for having me.